Okay, now that we have finished pay for performance, we'll move into the section on employee benefits. And the first thing we're going to do is review some of the legal considerations regarding benefits because they are slightly different than they are for other employment laws or EEO law in other contexts. So we'll start with pregnancy discrimination, and as we know, that the law basically states that if we offer health care benefits to our employees, which we all need to at this point in time, then it has to cover pregnancy and childbirth as well. And pregnancy is basically treated, as you know, like any other short-term disability because people are going to be off work for a temporary period of time. We're never pregnant forever, and then they come back to work. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the implication for benefits is that we want to make sure that we aren't using people's workers' comp history to make a determination whether or not we're going to hire them. We have to assume that people are willing to do good work. It doesn't mean that after the fact we can't do some investigation, and we could certainly let them go if we find that they have engaged in fraud, because fraud can occur in workers' comp. But the bottom line is we always assume with the best of intentions that people were legitimately sick on the job. We find that with workers' comp, that violates, discrimination. That's a discriminatory practice based on someone's disability. We're assuming that they're disabled because they took workers' comp. And when they do take workers' comp, obviously, it's a temporary situation. And many times it can be permanent, but a lot of times it's temporary. So we don't want to treat them differently because they've had a disability because of workers' comp. Other aspects are Family and Medical Leave Act, where we, private employers have to give unpaid leave, up to 12 weeks unpaid leave for their own or serious illness, or the birth or illness of a child, or birth or death of, illness or death of a parent or spouse, or and things like that. So obviously there are implications for who is considered a child and who is considered a spouse, as we talked about in some of the environmental trends and sociocultural trends that are going on sort of out there. But Family and Medical Leave Act was a law passed under Bill Clinton, President Clinton. There is some talk now about actually moving from unpaid leave to paid leave. Of course, there's a lot of people that are going to resist that, but there are a lot of countries that have paid leave for illnesses and sick and birth and adoptions and things like that, and it doesn't create any economic problems for them. So, we'll see how that progresses. Other laws, Age Discrimination and Employment Act, we can't deny benefits or have differential benefits for those that are over the age of 40. ERISA is how we manage our retirement plans, and there are all the laws involved around retirements. Basically, it talks about the fiscal responsibility we have in managing retirement plans, and it also ensures that people are able to accrue their benefits over a 5-year period in order to be able to fully access all of their employment rights. And just like our checking accounts are managed by FDIC, they're insured by the FDIC, the retirement plans are insured or protected by the PBGC, which is the Pension Benefits, I forgot what the G stood for, the corporation. So the goal is that the PBGC sort of makes sure that the funds are being managed appropriately, and people are accountable to them for those types of deliverables. The Economic Recovery Tax Act says that we are allowed to set up pre-tax money aside for dependent care, medical expenses, and things like that. So medical spending accounts are beneficial because we take the money off the top. Let's say we take $1,000 off the top. And then what we do is every time we have a medical bill, we can use our medical spending account to decrease our to pay for our bills. And that money is already taken out of our account, but it's taken out of our account pre-tax. And so that's set up as a separate way, and then whatever is remaining in our salary. Let's say we set aside $2,000 and our salary is $50,000. Instead of paying taxes on $50,000, I'm now paying taxes on $48,000, which is a little bit less. So that pre-tax money enables us to have less of a tax liability because, paying for medical expenses, paying for dependent care expenses, these can be really costly. So this is helpful for us in terms of a pre-tax benefit. COBRA, and it still holds today, even as far as I understand, under the Affordable Care Act, that private employers have to, if they terminate you for whatever reason, whether you're fired or you're retired or you're laid off, you're eligible for the insurance from the company for up to 18 months afterwards, and you pay it at the employer's rate, not at the employee rate. So you pay a decreased amount for the benefit you had. And considering that I paid for healthcare insurance on my own for a family benefit and it cost me over $1,000 a month, whereas I might pay less than that, maybe only a couple $100s a month, and that's a good thing. And so it enables people to still keep their insurance benefits even if they are unemployed, because it gets really expensive to maintain benefits. And if you have a chronic illness or a catastrophic accident, you want to be able to have those things available to you. The HIPAA, 1996, basically eliminated many of the restrictions on pre-existing conditions, and then the Affordable Care Act removed them entirely. It also talked about privacy issues and making sure that information is only being shared with the people that we want the information to be shared with. Otherwise, information will not be shared sort of broadly and open for everybody to access. The Affordable Care Act of 2010 is still currently the law of the land, but we don't know how much longer that will last. The most recent efforts by the Republican Party to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act with a different plan failed. They weren't able to get the votes to pass it. We won't get into the politics of it all, but it's important for you to know that the Affordable Care Act currently makes sure that people with pre-existing conditions are covered, that they still require plans to cover adult children up to the age of 26 on their parents' policies. They cover 100% of their coverage for preventative services. And the goal here is to be able to set up a minimum standard that everybody has in terms of the quality of their health care, and if policies don't meet those requirements, they are required then to either upgrade those policies, or they don't pay the insurance, pay a penalty, a tax basically, and the employees then go out into the open market to be able to find their insurance. There are lots of subsidies that are available, and the goal is, the way that this was designed, and it's not a perfect design, but the way this was designed was to ensure that if you have a larger pool of people where you're spreading out the risk, it brings the costs down for employees. And so that works well for those of us that want to get the insurance. We get lower rates, but the insurance companies are leaving the market because they're not making the profits that they want to make. Are they suffering? Well, it's debatable. Are they making lower profits? I'm sure. Are they making no profits or untenable profits? No, not at all. I mean, the insurance companies are making money hand over fist. So I think that there's a lot of debate as to whether or not the Affordable Care Act is doing what it needs to do. We do know that there were many, many, many more people that are insured now that weren't before, many more people that have better quality insurance policies than they had before. And I think the goal here really is that we need to come up with a better plan for how to ensure that everybody in this country has the right, not the privilege, but the right to have, a good health care plan and to be healthy. I don't think the Affordable Care Act is a perfect plan, but I think that we do have an obligation to fix what's wrong with it while not necessarily gutting what we have. And I know that the plan that was presented by the Republicans recently in spring of 2017 basically said people weren't going to lose their policies, but in fact the way the standards were set, it looked like many, many more people were going to lose their benefits and lose subsidies, and so the price of the insurance was going to go up. But
we can get into all sorts of political debates on this. But, again, I think that insurance is a right. I think we all deserve the right to have that. And I think that's a big part of why we have to be really careful about how we manage a replacement plan, because we don't want people to lose their health insurance, what they have already. We want to make sure it's available and a reasonable ability to access it, for all.
In terms of mandatory benefits, there are handfuls of mandatory benefits. Social Security is one, and then Social Security is broken down into things like retirement benefits, disability benefits, Medicare, which is health care benefits, and then survivor benefits for minors whose parents die before they are of age to work and support for themselves. And also, if you are married for more than 10 years, the spouse can collect the other individual's instead of their own Social Security benefits if the other person's benefits would be greater than their own. Workers' comp is basically you get medical benefits for work-related accidents, and so the goal is that we want to, it's considered no fault, and everybody, the company is required to pay for an injury that happens on the job. Unemployment compensation is when someone is laid off through no fault of their own, because they don't respond to training or anything like that, or they're just not capable of, it's just a bad match, not capable of doing the job. People can get unemployment compensation, and they basically then try to get some of the money, giving them some money so that they are able to sort of survive while they're looking for more work. It's not a government handout. This is based on an insurance policy that the company buys. They buy into this policy, and then the policy basically pays out the benefit to the employee who's been laid off, and it's sort of done through the state system in that manner.
The last element that is mandatory, of course, is the health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And again, as I said, we don't know how long that will be, but for now, it is a mandatory benefit.
Other types of benefits are more voluntary benefits. One type of voluntary benefit is severance pay. So if people get laid off, then they have to be paid severance. They don't have to be, but a company can voluntarily pay severance to an employee to apologize or to make amends for having to lay them off. Typically, you get about 2 months if the company doesn't give you enough advance notice, so you get 2 months pay that way. Supplemental unemployment benefits. Organizations can buy a policy above and beyond what's already out there, so that it enables them to add even more money on top of what someone would get if they were unemployed. Retirement security benefits include things like pensions, defined benefit and defined contribution plans, or 401k, 403b plans. A defined benefit is where the company says when you retire you will get twice your salary. It's guaranteed no matter what. And that a lot of companies are getting away from, because a defined benefit basically says the company has to guarantee that they'll get that money when they retire. And that's always a challenge when you're trying to predict what interest rates are going to be over time. And if there's economic downturns, that can be a problem. A defined contribution plan is much more likely. It's where people know how much money they'll put into it, but there's no guarantees what will come out because, again, economic conditions and things like that. A 401k or a 403b is not necessarily a pension that's managed by the company, but the money is given to this external vendor, and they manage it themselves. And it's a form of a defined contribution plan, so that a 403b is typically done in a nonprofit organization or an educational institution, and a 401k is usually in a for-profit. And in both of those circumstances, there's the money is all taken out pre-tax, and then it's given to somebody to manage in terms of the investments.
With the advent of the Affordable Care Act, we now understand that healthcare is a mandatory benefit, but there are other insurances that you can utilize that is purely voluntary. Organizations don't have to give you dental care, and they don't have to give you life insurance either. So dental, life, vision, those sorts of things, these are all voluntary insurance offerings that a company can give you.
Financial services like profit sharing and tuition reimbursement, where you get once you complete a class, you submit your grade and you get reimbursed for that benefit. And then other kinds of miscellaneous services like charitable contributions. The company will match what you do. Getting a company car, which is a taxable benefit, but a benefit still nonetheless if you have a job that requires a lot of driving. A concierge service is where if you are in a company that's really busy, all the time, what they'll do is they'll have a concierge at the company in the lobby so that you can go in, and if you need to buy somebody flowers because you forgot, and on the way on work in the morning you remembered that you wanted to buy flowers for somebody, you pay them money and they'll make sure that the flowers get delivered. If you want to have your laundry delivered to work or your dry cleaning delivered to work, it can be done to the concierge service and you pick it up and you can take it home. So this way it makes life easy. It sort of does all your little chores for you while you are doing your job, and so you don't have to worry about running your errands during your lunch hour or running errands after work or having to leave early. The concierge service takes care of all those kinds of errands for you. You can even get groceries delivered to them and they will take care of it for you until you're able to take them home. Credit unions are fairly common, and SIUE has a credit union you should take advantage of. And then transportation benefits. In a pre-tax benefit, employers will set aside money to help pay for commuting costs, or they might donate a special card so that people can ride public transportation and things like that. So that's always a good benefit. And then we already talked a little bit in the beginning of the term about ways to avoid problems with absenteeism, and one of the ways we can do that is making sure we manage the days off the way that we have days off for people. You can have a combination of vacations and personal days and sick days. Sometimes you can lump them all together in one plan and say you get these many days to use to be off work, as many as you want. Once you do more than that, then you're going to be held accountable for it, and it's going to cost you. It's not going to be free to be off work. So we can use those plans, and that will help us to minimize absenteeism if we have really good sick day plans. We can try to manage the absenteeism problem a little bit better. The last thing we'll talk about is flexible benefit plans. And when we talked a long time ago in class about how there were some benefits that seemed to be available for married people with children and other benefits that didn't seem to exist for people who were single and didn't have children, and how do we manage that? And the way that we manage that is through what we call cafeteria plans or flexible benefits plans. And the goal is that everybody gets a pot of money that they get to spend towards benefits. And then I can customize my plan the way that better suits my needs. So if the company says 10% of your salary can go towards benefits, you can pick and choose how you want to spend that 10% of your money. That's sort of a nice benefit. So there's a couple different ways we can do that. The core cafeteria plan says you have to get this core benefit of, let's say there's like 3 or 4 things that everybody has to have, and then you can kind of customize your plan after that, so you can have more of this or more of that or less of one thing or another, and so you can really customize the plan to you. A buffet plan basically says you can have whatever's available here. You can eat more or you can eat less on certain items, but you will get at least one of everything on this list, and then you can add more or decrease more depending on what works for you. An alternative dinner plan is where the company sets up meals already set for you, and there's custom meals. There's custom meals or custom benefits packages for people who are retiring, who are close to retirement age, where they might get more money in their retirement funds as opposed to putting it towards child care benefits. And then people who are younger, who have children and things like that, they want to have more vacation time and they want to have more sick days and they want to have child care benefits. And so it enables you to customize a plate of benefits that goes to the employees, and then I come into the company and I can choose the family plan, or I can choose the retiree plan, or I can choose the young hip and single plan, and I can get a benefits plan that sort of tries to match my needs more closely. The difference between alternative dinner and core cafeteria is that core cafeteria gives me a wide variety of different choices, whereas alternative dinners basically says you have 4 dinners to choose from, choose one of them. Core cafeteria says you can have this appetizer. Everybody has the same appetizer, but how you want to spend the rest of your meal is different, and it's all on you. The nice thing about these flexible benefits plans is that They're easier to administer, and the easiest to administer is the buffet plan and the alternative dinner. Core cafeteria is a lot more complex because of the different kinds of benefits attached to it and the different kind of varieties of benefits that can be attached and the levels of customization. But by and large, the alternative dinner plan basically is the easiest to manage. And this way we can have perceptions of fairness when it comes to the rewards. Everybody gets their own sort of custom plan, and it doesn't feel like some people are getting more or better rewards than others, how that works. So that's it for pay for performance and benefits. Thank you.